My name is Will Kimbley. I'm an instructional technology consultant for the Tulare County Office of Education down in Visalia. And I just stepped out of the classroom this summer, and before that I was a elementary, middle school teacher and technology coach and all that lovely stuff. The resources we're going to use today are going to be available for you afterwards as well. And it's on my website, teachinteractive.org, so just take the Teach Interactive and add .org to the end. And all my resources are there. Where I'm going to be at today is under Google Apps, you'll see a tab called Google Forms. So at teachinteractive.org on my Google Forms page. I can tell you that I am not going to get through everything today because I've done as long as 6 hours on Google Forms and run out of time. So 1 hour session is going to be a challenge to get through everything in time here. And if we can get everything to open up, there we go. Teachinteractive.org. Yeah, the .org helps. So how many use Google Apps, Google Drive at this point? Okay. How many of you are new to Forms, or okay? How many use Forms like all the time? Okay. All right. So I will then go ahead and go through the intro part of Google Forms, just to kind of give you a feel for where everything's at. If you're new to it, some of you may know some of this stuff, but there are some new features, and I will be talking a little bit about some of the new features today. So let's talk a little bit about what Google Forms are. Google Forms essentially just a way for you to drop information into a spreadsheet. So being able to gather information quickly and easily, but you can use it to make quizzes and surveys and all that good stuff. And so in Google Drive, if you click Create and choose a form, it asks you to give a title and a theme to it, which is kind of nice because they used to didn't ask that. So I got a lot of forms that were called untitled form. I actually still get that occasionally, but I don't get it quite as much. So, so you can go ahead and choose a title and a theme, but don't worry about it because you can always change that again later. So once you've chosen a title and a theme and you click on it, it comes up and looks like this, and you can go back into it and choose, either click on where it says the title. I titled this quiz, very inventive, or you can click on theme and change that at any time. So sometimes, you know, you're at the beginning of something, you're thinking, oh, I got to think of a really good name for this. You can always go back and change it. So this is kind of an important concept with Google Forms, and it's really one of the things that I have to work with people that are using Google Forms for the first time to get an understanding of it. Because when you're in Google Drive and you go into a document, you're just in the document. You go in and out of the document. Same thing with presentation and all that other stuff. With Google Forms, there's actually 3 different views. There's a lot of working parts to the Google form. And so the first view you see is when you create a form is the edit view. So this is where you can add questions, you can go back in and edit them and rearrange them, move the questions up and down, back and forth, what have you. The other view is the live view. All right, so the reason why this is kind of important here is because each one of these is done in a web browser, and there's a URL up at the top. So if you're in the editing view and you send the link to your editing view, then you're sharing the edit view of the form. You want to go to the live view of the form, and that's the link you want to share with whoever's going to fill out the form. But the answers have to go somewhere, and that's in the spreadsheet view. And I'll show you how to navigate back and forth between these. But this is an important concept because you're seeing these at different times and locations, and they all 3 have to work together to be able to jump back and forth. So I'm back in the editing view, and there you can get to the spreadsheet view by choosing the response destination. Right now it says choose response destination because I haven't linked it up with a spreadsheet. If you used Forms a while back, it would automatically create a spreadsheet for you. Now you get the option to choose whether or not to join it to a spreadsheet. You can also unlink it from the spreadsheet and join it to another spreadsheet if you want to do that as well. So when it starts out and it creates the form, it doesn't actually create the spreadsheet for you. You actually have to do that, and you do that by choosing response destination. You can also get to the live view of the form by clicking View Live Form. while we're here in the edit view, let's talk a little bit about what's here. That number right there is the number of responses. It used to be on the spreadsheet, and people didn't see it. Right here in the edit view, you see that number, and it lets you know how many people have responded to your form. So when I taught last year, I had 210 students. Of 187 of it, if it said 187, I knew I need to go track down some students. So it's kind of a handy way of knowing right away if everybody's filled it out. You can also turn the form on and off. So if you're posting a link to a quiz that you've done in Google Forms on your website, but you don't want them to take that quiz till tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, what you do is you click on that little check mark there, deselect it, and it turns the form off. It will not accept responses. And you could go back, and then tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, you go in, check that button, and then the link becomes a working link on your site, and you don't have to worry about going in and embedding. You can turn the form on and off right there. And no, there's no automatic timer on it. You have to do it manually. This one here, I haven't found a real use for it, but if you have some commonly used common responses, so if you know that most of the people that you have that's filling out the survey are from Sacramento, you can choose Sacramento in the question, where are you from? And then that way people from Sacramento don't have to answer that question. If anybody else can answer that, and you can get a pre-filled URL. So you could choose your common answers and then give the link to that, and that way it makes it a little faster for people filling out a form or a survey. Again, you can get to choose the response destination here. And you can also delete your responses. Used to, you would go into the spreadsheet and delete the rows in the spreadsheet, or clear out the spreadsheet if you wanted to reuse it again, but you can delete your responses right here. So that was the editing view. You can navigate around in the spreadsheet view. So you click on the form button, you'll see where it says you can get into editing form. You can go to the live form there as well. So each of these you can jump back and forth. You can also get the embed code if you want to embed the form in a web page. When you choose a response destination, it does give the option of a new spreadsheet, and it titles it whatever you've titled the form, and puts it in quotes, puts responses. But you can actually choose a new sheet in an existing spreadsheet, so you can send it to a spreadsheet that you already have. This one right here, again, I haven't found a use for it, but apparently there is a limit to the spreadsheet of 400,000 cells. So if you're surveying, I don't know, the western half of the United States, you may need to keep it only in forms. So in editing the questions, it comes with a multiple choice question, and you can change the question type by clicking on that. In fact, you can change the question type at any time. You can go back and edit and change it, if it's multiple choice or something, you'll lose your answer options or what have you. But if you're changing from multiple choice to choose from a list, it keeps those answer options. That's kind of a nice feature. You can, if it's multiple choice, checklist, choose from a list, you can enter in your answer options. They call it option 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that throws some people off, but that's actually, if you're, like I said, multiple choice, that would be where you put your answer options. So once you've created a question, if you hover the cursor over a question, you see a discoloration, it changes color. You'll also see the most recent one you were on. You'll notice that blue line there on the left. That was the most recent question you were on. So if you created several questions and you realize you forgot a question that should have been question 2, if you go back up and select question 1, you'll know you've selected it because of that blue line. If you insert the question, then it'll put it right there instead of at the bottom of the form. Used to, you would always add it at the bottom. You would have to drag the questions back up and down, and you can still do that just by hovering your cursor over it, holding down your mouse button and dragging that back and forth. But now you can actually move your cursor, select the question and insert the question wherever you want. You'll see the editing options there. The pencil edits it. You can duplicate. You can delete it. Paragraph text is just a larger text box. Check boxes if it's multiple answers. drop-down list, just choose from a list. This is something fairly new. You can ask date and time questions, scale questions, and you've seen these if you've done SurveyMonkey, what have you, these grid type questions, and I'll show some things you can do with a grid question later on. So the way to add the next question is to add item. One thing I would suggest though, get in the habit of clicking on the little arrow there instead of on the add item button, because if you're changing question types, or if you want to put in a page break or a section, when you click on the add item button, it just adds in pretty much the same type of question or page break that you were on before. So what you want to do is click on that little arrow. If you click on the arrow, it pops up with all of the question types and things that you can add in. You can also insert questions by clicking the insert button up at the top in the ribbon. Two things we didn't talk about because they're not question types is the section header and the page break. And those are pretty important for being able to do a lot of things in forms. The section header, if you want to break up your quiz, because when you're creating a form, it just adds question after question after question. So you've got this long list of questions, and maybe you need to break it up some. You can put in a section header. In fact, you can put in a piece of text. So maybe there's a poem or a paragraph that you want the students to respond to. You put a section header in because you can put in text, and it'll hold quite a bit of text. I put an entire page of text in there. So you can put that essay or paragraph, whatever you're putting in there, and then add questions underneath that. And so you can break it up, things like that. The page break allows you to see just a certain number of questions at a time. So if you put in 2 questions, then a page break, they're going to see just those 2 questions. Maybe it's even 1 question. This is really good for students that can't focus and they just need 1 question at a time. So you just put in question, page break, question, page break. And I'll show you some really cool things you can do with page breaks as well. 2 fairly new things are images and videos. I've been doing forms presentations since they started doing forms, and the question up until I think about February of this year was, can we put images in? Can we put images in? And you couldn't. Then the guy worked up a script. Then Google finally got around to putting it in. You can put it in. But now, as of about a week or so ago, you can actually add in videos from YouTube. So that's kind of a neat feature because you can flip your classroom that way. Put in the video, put in questions, because that's one of the challenges of having a flipped classroom is they watch the video. Well, what do they do with that? This way you can have them, you can even put in a text question and have them write notes there, whatever they're doing, right there in the Google form itself, and not have to collect that separately. Branch logic is kind of a hidden feature that is really cool, and it works here in multiple choice questions. And you'll notice there was this little tiny checkbox right next to multiple choice. It says go to page based on answer, and a lot of people don't even notice that. But it's a really powerful tool. One way to do it, use it as a diagnostic quiz. So, you know, if you're asking 3/4 plus 2/3, there's a lot of ways to get that wrong, right? And so you want to know, why did they get that wrong? Where did they go wrong in answering that question? If they answered 5/7, they probably have a problem with least common multiple. So what you do is you create a question. And by the way, ignore the page 2, page 3. Those I set this up as an example, and that's really not good quiz design. So if you've got a 10-question quiz, what you would want to do is then actually have more than 10 questions, because if they answer all the questions correctly, they should really only answer 10 questions. But if they answer 5/7, you want to know, why did they answer that wrong? So on page 11, you would put in a question that asks a least common multiple question. On page 12, you might want to put in one on simplification. And whatever other diagnostic questions, those would be questions 11 through whatever. And that you would route them to that. Because once you do this, the go to page based on answer, next to each answer, you have this option of where to send it to. And you'll notice I said LCM here and simplification. Otherwise, it would be just pages. Because when you put in the page break, you have a place for a title in the page break. So that's where I put in the page break, put in that title, LCM, simplification. That way you're not remembering which question is on what page. and then you can route them back to the correct answer. You have an option for requiring the question, and I suggest making all questions required unless there truly are people that don't have to answer that question. Because how many of us have filled out a form online and we hit send and it says, hey, you forgot to fill out such and such, and it's going to happen in your surveys and quizzes. So I just get in the habit of requiring all questions, unless it's something like that diagnostic where I don't want shouldn't have to answer that question. You could also use this, so if you're sending out a survey for parents, teachers, and staff, you can ask a question, are you a parent? And then teacher or staff, and jump them to the section of just the questions directed at parents or teachers or staff, what have you. So this is one of the brand new features, the show progress bar at the bottom of form pages. So especially if it's page breaks, and I've done that before where I'm taking a quiz or filling out a survey and I'm going, how long is this going to take me? And that progress bar is kind of a nice feature that, okay, I'm halfway done, I'm almost done, or okay, I'm giving up on this because I still got a long way to go. So it's kind of a nice feature to give to people that are filling out your forms. You will not see this unless you're in a Google Apps domain. Then, by the way, this sits up at the top of your forms. If you're in a Google Apps domain, so if you set up your own Google Drive accounts for your students or your staff, what have you, you can require them to log into the domain, and you can automatically collect their usernames. One of the issues with this is when you are in an apps domain, it comes automatically checked to require them to log in. So if you're sending this out to people that are not in your domain and you want it to open, you have to deselect that. I wish it wasn't automatically checked for you, but I did that on a survey that I sent out, and nobody could fill it out because it required their login, and I had about 100 emails because people were requesting access to the form. So anyway, just keep an eye on that. So this is the data validation. This is what we were talking about just a minute ago. So now in a text question, you can actually do data validation where, so for instance, if it is a number, you can say it's greater than, less than, equal to. You can dial it in and tell it that it has to be between this and this. You can choose text, and again, that it's a valid email address format or a valid URL format, or it can have this contain certain things or not contain certain things in that text. Also with data validation, it can be a regular expression, and I don't know exactly what that means, but it's an option that you can choose there. The edit confirmation, right there, your response has been recorded. That's the standard one. You can edit that. You can even put in links to something else. So you give students a quiz, say, okay, now I want you to click on this link and go to this website and watch this video or read this article or what have you. You can give them a link to another assignment or some other information there. You can also collaborate on the forms now, and it's real-time collaboration, so that you can, just like in a Google presentation, people can be working on the form on the presentation at the same time. You can actually edit the Google form at the same time. So that is an overview of the forms. So let's talk a little bit about how to use them creatively. How many remember that first time you learned that you could share Google Drive, Google Doc with somebody else? You had visions of a paperless classroom, and your students could share stuff with you, right? And then they started sharing stuff with you. What happened to your Google Drive inbox? And when they share it with you, it also says, notify them with an email. What happened to your email inbox, all right? So I quit having students share stuff with me. So I tell them, don't share it with me. And I have them fill out a form instead, and they post a link to their assignment. So I ask 4 questions. What period are you in? Your first name and last name, and a link to the assignment. This will actually work for any web-based assignment, so it doesn't have to be just a Google Doc. It could be if my students created websites, so I said, send me a link to your website. So now I have a spreadsheet with links to each of their websites. It could be, I need you to go find a YouTube video, or I need you to, anything on the internet they can turn that in with a Google form, and it gives you a spreadsheet with a link to that assignment. It's pretty simple. Create a form. Again, make questions required. And again, if you're in a Google Apps domain, you have the option of requiring a login and collecting it, so you can know that that was turned in by that student's login, which doesn't stop them from sharing their login information with somebody else, but slows them down. So here's the one issue with it. Just like any sharing settings, they're going to have to give you permission to see it. So what I do is I put that in there, because that's the part you have to train them about, is tell them to change the sharing settings so that anyone with the link can. I just wanted commenting permissions, so if you want them to view, edit, or comment on it, whatever permissions you want, have them change this. So underneath the title, I put that text in there reminding them, hey, fill this out with this information. I ask questions like period, or if it's a group. I want that multiple choice, because there's a lot of ways to type in third period, and it's a spreadsheet, and I have 210 students. And if they type in period 3, it's going to be in a very different location than those that's typed in third period, so I make it multiple choice. I also collect the first and last name separately, because again, it's a spreadsheet, and if whatever the first letter of that in that cell is, it's going to sort by that. So Will Kimbley is not, I can't sort by Kimbley if I put them in the same, so I have them put that in separately so I can sort them separately. Again, I put in the help text again saying, change the share settings so that anyone with the link can comment. And I remind them of that. That's probably, like I said, the biggest step with getting students to work with this. They will learn it pretty fast. By the end of the year, I still have the same 2 that forget all the time, but there's nothing I'm going to be able to do about that. If you sort in spreadsheets a lot, you can sort by multiple columns. With Google Forms spreadsheets, for some reason, you can only sort by 1 column at a time. So if you want to have it organized by period, last name, first name, you sort each column in reverse order. So you'll see at the top of each column, you'll see a little arrow there. You click on that, and then it gives you the option to sort just that column. So if you're want it by period, last name, first name, sort by first, last, and then period. Sort each column in that order, in reverse order, whatever you want it to be in. And I could explain the logic behind it, why that works, but just trust me, it works, okay? And then you got a spreadsheet. So you can click on the links, view any assignment, and it frees up your inbox. And so what that looks like, or looked like, I keep talking like I'm still in the classroom. I guess the scars are still fresh. So my students on my website, they would go into dropboxes, and they would click on one of these links, and it would open up, and they would fill it out. So Powtoon Dropbox. So they would go in, fill this out, post in the link. I would go into my Google Forms, and I could open this up. And then I could go in, and this is not even a Google Drive assignment. This is, they created a presentation in Powtoon. And so I could go in and just click on the link, open it up, review it, assign it a grade, close it, go to the next one, and it's a great way. Especially, like I said, if things that you're going to a lot, like their websites or their blogs, having that in a spreadsheet makes it really, really convenient for you. So there you go, and I could do that. So that is assignment Dropboxes, and it really saved my life, my Google life anyway. So the next thing I want to show you is something that is so simple that a 7th grade girl can do it. The way I know that, don't throw anything yet, the way I know that is a 7th grade girl taught me how to do it, okay? One of my students did this. And so they were working on a website for the Fresno Zoo, and I said, you're going to create all these multimedia things and what have you, and you're going to put them on the website. You're teaching about your animal. Her animal was the serval. And so she came to me, she's real quiet, real shy, just didn't say anything. She says, can I put a quiz in my website? Yeah, you can do that. And I had taught them about Google Forms, and they created those, and they knew how to do Flubaroo, and I thought, well, how is she going to do this? She's going to grade this and send this to, because it's a website, how often is she going to grade this and send the answers back to people? How is anybody going to know whether or not they got the right answer? And so as she was walking away, I'm just kind of like mentally patting her on the head. You go right ahead, honey. See how that works. I don't think it's going to work. And she came back and showed me that it does work. So I'll show you. In fact, this is her actual quiz that is slowly opening up. So how many of you know what a serval is? Excellent. All right. So if it ever opens up, we can ask some questions. Okay, so where do servals live near? Do they live near sand, grass, rocks, or water? Grass? Okay. Zoos, yes, absolutely. So we're going to choose grass. The beauty of this is it doesn't matter if we're right or wrong, because you're going to find out right away. This is an instant feedback. As soon as we answer this, we're going to find out what the correct answer is. And which actually, we know from research that immediate feedback is best. And it's actually even better if they get it wrong, because they're more likely to remember that answer than if they actually answered it right, because you remember that painful experience a little longer. So we're going to find out they actually live near water. So the workflow, as soon as I saw this, clicked on it, I knew immediately what she had done, but it's like nobody had ever figured out how to do this before. And what she did, go back to, I'm in the wrong page here. Here we go. Go back here. What she did was she created a form, she put in a question, and then she went to add item and she chose a page break, so that you're only seeing one question at a time. And when you put a page break in, you have text options. And so she put the answer in the page break. So the workflow of it was really simple. Question, page break, question, page break. Put in a question, then you put in a page break, and you put in the answer to that question. Which I took this, and well, she also put in, so here's the question. The question was, what color is the sky? The sky is blue. So this is the answer, but then you can also put in help text here to give more information, and that link will be a live link. So this is kind of a cool thing, that they will actually, if you interest them, if your questions are interesting enough, they can actually go and read more about it, and they actually will click on those links and go check it out. So I had my students create these. I didn't create any of these. They created them. So I would say, you're going to create an instant feedback quiz to study for yourself. And actually what we did is have them each of them create their own quiz, fill out an assignment link form, and then we shared that out with them, and they could go study each other's quizzes by going to that spreadsheet and being able to study each other's work. They also had their own websites, and they would post them in their websites and what have you. So each question, put in a page break, and you get put the answer in there. One thing though, so you could take this to the next step here, because you'll notice you have the answer to the previous question here, and here's the next question immediately. Some people don't like that, so instead of putting just a question page break, put in 2 page breaks and make the second one blank. That way all they're going to see is a question, then an answer. They click continue, then they go to the next question. So it's question, 2 page breaks if you don't want them to see the answer and the next question at the same time. So I've got a couple different things for rubrics. I'll show you the simple one first, and I got this from Jen Roberts. So this is the way a rubric works. That essentially you're going across, through each of these. With this simple rubric, you're just going to use these top-level competencies right here. By the way, if you don't use Rubistar for Teachers and you like rubrics, you should use it. It's free, and it's really, really easy and quick to set up and customize a rubric. So it's rubistarforteachers.org. By the way, again, all these slide decks are on my website, so you can access them later and links like that, what have you. So again, create a form. You're going to use a grid question, so change it from multiple choice to grid. And so your top-level competencies go in the rows, and the point values go in the columns. So workflow looks a little bit like this. You take that competency, you drop it in row 1, row 2, row 3, so on. Point values go in reverse order like a rubric. So whatever your point values are for your rubric, put them in reverse order. And this is what it looks like. So it's not a true rubric in that you don't detail and describe it. It's really kind of turns it into a scale question. On a scale of 4 to 1, 4 being the best, how well did they meet that competency? So it's just a nice, simple way of making a quick rubric. I actually have a more complicated rubric, and I have the tutorial for that down here at the bottom. But we're not going to have time to go through it. What I'll do is I will explain that real quickly, how that works. It does take more time, and so I have my TAs do it. But what this does, so I'm the kind of guy that I walk into the mailroom, and my mailbox doesn't change, but I can't focus enough on mailboxes, enough to find my own mailbox. So rubrics drove me crazy when I first started teaching because I can't focus on that one box, look, you know, at the, so, and I got students that way too. So this way you can, with branch logic and with the go to page based on answer, you can then set this up so that it goes just to one question at a time. So depending on how the answer is that. So let me explain how this works. So you think of each of these as a question, yes or no, did it meet that competency? And if the answer is no, it goes here. If the answer is no, it goes here, right? If they say yes to any of these questions, you say go to page 5. They say yes to any of these questions, go to page. So ideally they're going to say yes, 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 and yes. So it's going to go have it jump down this way. So what you do is put in question, page break, question, page break. In between each of these questions, you have a page break. And again, yes or no, did they meet that? As soon as they say yes, jump down to here. If they say no, jump here. If they say no, jump here. If they say yes, it jumps down here. So it takes a while to set it up, which is why I have my TAs do it. But it puts it one question at a time. And the way I had my students grade their work, because most of it was computer-based, they would have 2 browsers up side by side, one with the form, with the rubric, and then their work. And they're looking at the work, answering, okay, does it meet this competency? And they would grade themselves with this. So ideally, they're going to put that up there and on the yes question right there, the very first one, and they're going to look at their work, say, okay, and then they fix that. Then they go to the next one. And so it helped prepare them because the way I did my grading is it was a conversation where they're showing me their work and I'm giving them feedback on it, allowing them to go back and fix it. This helped prepare them. This was not really a grading tool. This was for them to grade themselves. I also had them give each other feedback so they're grading other students' work with this. But by putting that one question up at a time, I found out that my grading time with the students was a lot less. I could spend, they usually had their work up to par and I could just give them some few hints of corrective feedback because I had the rubric and they were going through it and saying, okay, yeah. Because if you give them just the rubric, that whole sheet, it's a lot of stuff. But you're giving one question, does my project meet this competency? They can fix that stuff, and it really helped my classroom out quite a bit. So that is the simple rubric and the complex rubric. You can ignore this slide deck here on adding images to Google Forms. It is obsolete, but that's what we used to use back in the day. So there is a script called Flubaroo that will allow you to grade multiple choice questions. And I want you to help me out with that by taking a quiz. So if you go to this short URL, or if you have a QR code reader, you can snap the QR code and take a quiz. And yes, there are trick questions on it. And the link there, Flubaroo, is actually a link to the Flubaroo website that'll tell you a lot about Flubaroo and including how to use it. I've also got 2 videos down here. The guy who wrote the script has a video here on how to grade your forms with Flubaroo, but he didn't show you how to put the script in. So I made a video here on how to put the script in. So you can, we're going to go through it and I'll show you the steps of it. But if you don't remember later on, it's right there for you. Did everybody get to the quiz? Anybody still need the URL or anything? Okay. So you can see right here that we're starting to get some answers. So one of the questions with using Google Forms and quizzes is, where do I put the answers? And with a regular Google form, you don't put the answers in and grade it. You actually have to put in a script to have that grade. And this was written by Dave Abuav, who actually worked for Google at one point, but he also taught at junior college, and like all good teachers, he was a little lazy and didn't want to do any grading. So he wrote this script to grade multiple choice questions. It will work with single answers and short answers, but it doesn't work really well, and let me explain. So the way the script works is you do have to have an answer key. So you notice I have one here called answer key. It's real creative. And the way I got the answer key in there is I took the quiz myself, and instead of putting in my name, I put an answer key. And you want to be the first person to put it in there, because when you go to select your answer options, or which one has the correct answers, you don't want to have to scroll all the way down through the spreadsheet to find that. So I always make sure I'm the first one to fill this out. And so you put in the answers, you put in the correct answers in there. The way it's working is it's looking at this cell right here, and it's comparing everything in that form to this right here. It's going to look at that and compare it. Does it match this exactly? So that's why it really only works best for multiple choice. Or if you're pretty confident they can type it in correctly, then you can use a short answer for that. So it's looking at this, looks at each cell and compares it with the one that I've identified as the correct answer, and it says, does it match it exactly? So there is a kind of a workaround for that. So it works for short answers like numbers here. You can put that in because, and I used to say that no one would type in FIFTY-T. I actually have a student that did that, and so yeah, but most of the time you can't. But if you put in %or, you can put in, if you can think of all the possible misspellings of the word, you can put in a short answer. But you'd have to think of all the possible misspellings, and you may or may not be able to do that. So the way to put in the script is you click Insert and then Script. It's real difficult. But it's in the spreadsheet again, and it can only be put in the spreadsheet view. So if you're in the editing view of the form, you're not going to be able to put it in there. So again, right here in the ribbon, click Insert and then choose Script. And then you can search through it. I just type in Flubaroo. And it'll search for it. There are two scripts that will come up. One of them is BitSat, which will allow negative marking. And I didn't know why it would do that. I thought, why would you be so mean? You got that so wrong, I'm taking points away from you. And then somebody pointed out the SAT there stands for SAT type testing, which they do that to you apparently in SAT tests, that if you answer something wrong, they take points away, which I think is a little sadistic still, but that's why it's there. So you want the one that just says Flubaroo, and you would click Install, and it'll probably come up saying it's already installed. So you would just go through the normal install procedures, just follow all the little buttons. If it says, are you sure you want to do this? Say yes, because if you say no, it won't install. There is a thing that comes up, says, this was not made by Google. Are you sure you want to do this? And it's got this red border around it, and it freaks people out. Just say yes, it's okay. Dave's a good guy. You're not installing anything malicious. Once it's installed, you'll see in the ribbon, it'll say Flubaroo. There's a couple things that you want to watch out for. One is you go back the next day and you open up your spreadsheet and you're going, hey, this doesn't say Flubaroo up there. Wait about 30 seconds. It takes about 30 seconds for that to appear. So you got to watch out for that. So I've already graded this before a lot of times. And so it says regrade assignment, all that. Normally it would just say grade assignment. And so I'm going to click regrade assignment. And it'll replace the existing grades. Sometimes it runs really slow, especially when you don't want it to run really slow. I've also found another thing. There are some school networks that I've been on that instead of this will start coming up, and then it starts wanting to download files when I'm using Google Chrome, and I don't know why. I've just found it on a couple school districts that I've been at. If it starts to want to download a file, open it up in Firefox. I found Firefox actually works pretty effectively for that workaround. So you'll notice it identifies the questions. This one says the first name, which identifies the student. And it's pretty good at identifying, hey, those are student identification questions. And then you can choose point values. So for instance, this multiple choice, this math question was a little harder, so we'll make that 5 points. And the science question was a little harder, so we'll make that worth 5 points. And what city are you from? I don't want to grade that. I'm going to say that, I'm going to, you can go all the way down here and you can tell it to skip grading. So while this is designed, again, for multiple choice, if you want to ask a text question, what you would probably want to do is choose skip grading, and then you can go into the spreadsheet and grade that manually. So you don't have to just use it with multiple choice. You just skip, you don't use the Flubaroo script to grade those questions. So you click continue. And I did put in an email address, but I deleted that out of the spreadsheet because I'm not, again, I'm not going to be grading it. I guess I could tell it to skip grading or what have you, but once you do that, click continue. And then it's going to start grading the assignment. Again, sometimes it's faster than others. And then you'll see what it does is it pops open a second sheet in your spreadsheet called grades, and it starts populating those in the spreadsheet. And voila, it's done. So up at the top, it gives you a summary of it. It will also mark in red anyone that did not do very well. So you can put that up on the screen, humiliate everyone. Also, a question that a lot of people get wrong, it will highlight it and say it'll highlight that so you can see students that did not do well as questions that, hey, I need to go back and reteach this concept. And then you can email them their grades. You can include the answer key. Hey, here's why it was wrong. And say, thanks for coming to my session today, or thanks for, or go study this. And then click continue, and it sends out an email to everyone with their grades. Yeah?
You mentioned before that the adding images to question, the one that you had is not, are you still able to do that?
Yeah, yeah. So in a Google form, so let me, so in fact, yeah, I usually demo that. So I'm going to click create a form, and so if you want to put an image, click insert image. Okay. And then it allows you to go in. And by the way, this is a cool feature here. So you can take a snapshot, you can upload, what have you. If you have images in Google Drive, you can access your images in Google Drive. But down here is search, and you can search Google Images right here. And it's only Creative Commons images, so it's a good way. In fact, all your Google Drive will allow you to do this. So like if I have students create presentations, I tell them use this to get your images and teach them digital citizenship about you want to use Creative Commons images. So the search here is only going to give you images that you're free to use and share. But you also notice it allows you to search the life archives as well as stock images. So you can search those. So if we search for horse, I don't know why, but I don't know. Maybe I'm teaching ag. By the way, when you do the search, you'll notice there's a color bar up there. And you can dial it in by color. So if you only, no images found.
You're looking for rainbow horses.
Yeah, I don't know, frog. Let's go with that. There we go, frog. But maybe I only want red frogs. So I can click on red, and it's going to give me just red frogs. So that's kind of a fun thing. You can also go by type. So face, photo, clip art. How about a line drawing? Probably because there's no red line drawings. Let's go back here. There we go. Now I got line drawings of frogs. So if I choose that, it's going to drop it in there. Notice it's a little big. So if I click on the image, I can resize it. And you can center it, left, center, right. And you can actually put in hover text. So if they have a screen reader, maybe they're sight impaired, and most screen readers will read hover text. You can also hover over the image and it'll tell you what it is. You can put a title, the image, what have you. Frog. Tell them what you want to do with the image. Change it, click done. And then add a question about that right underneath it. What is this? I am not the teacher that can think of questions on the fly, so I know it sounds like I'm trying to be funny. No, I just really can't think of questions that fast. I have to do everything right up there. Teaching math was terrible because, trying to make up a math problem in front of the students, I just couldn't do it. So anyway, so that's how to insert an image, and you can insert now video the same way. Go to YouTube. If you can search YouTube from here, or if you already have a URL of the video. I wish they would allow you to insert videos from like Google Drive video. That way you can put your own videos into Google Drive, and then, but
They don't.
just,
It's so crazy.
yeah, just put them on YouTube, I guess. Yeah.
If it's a URL, then is it just YouTube URLs, or can you get a URL from another video? Would that
Ooh.
work?
I didn't think of that. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, try that out. I don't know if it'll work, but
Because when
Go to
you put it on
Vimeo.
Drive, you have a URL for your
yeah.
sharing.
I have to try that out. Not from Google. You tried it with Google Drive? Did you try it with like Vimeo or?
No, just the stuff that I have on my Google Drive.
Oh, okay.
It wouldn't take it.
Okay.
It wanted
All right.
a YouTube.
It says it has to be YouTube, so then probably Vimeo won't work as well. Bummer.
Just with Google Sites, then they allow you.
Yeah, bummer. No, Google Sites, you can use Google Drive video. You used to.
Google Drive, but like Vimeo,
Oh, yeah.
unless you get like an embed code.
Yeah, right. So, it's progress. I mean, you didn't, 2 weeks ago you couldn't do that. So, that's, I'll take it. Like I said, we've, been asking for images for what, 3 years? Is it 3 years or 4 years since they came out with forms? And so it just came out, what, 6 months ago, if that.
In the
Yes?
Flubaroo, you set it up as like a sorry, what's this GOO.gl? I mean, where did you get that?
Oh, okay.
Went to?
Okay, so that is a URL shortener. So notice this link right here is really long, and I don't want to have you type that in. And so what I do is I use a shortener called, there's several of them, bit.ly, there's tinyurl, if you go to goo.gl, and hit enter instead of shift, it takes you to a URL shortener. You paste in a long URL, and it'll give you that short URL. So I use that quite a bit. There's the one I like another one I like is from bit.ly, bit.ly, and what that one does is allow you to customize it. So I can have bit.ly / TCOE iPads, or bit.ly / Kimbley, or whatever, I can customize those. So these, and if you can, what I like about this is this one works with Google. So your Google account, you can log into it, and so it's keeping a record. So I can go in and I can check the details, and I can see no one's used that URL. And I can also go to other ones. So this one right here, there's been 20 clicks on this one, and it lets me know when they happened. So I must have been using this on this one particular class. It will also tell me what browsers are being used with it, what countries, what platforms. It's kind of a lot of information there. And notice what else it has. It has a QR code. So I get a short URL and a QR code at the same time. So that's,
And that was the GOO.gl.
yeah. It doesn't allow you to customize it. And sometimes, like with this one right here, you know, are those O's or zeros? And the L's, is that L or a capital I? Things like that. In fact, we had that problem in a session earlier. Somebody had a capital I and everybody was typing in L because they thought it was an L. And so you want to be careful with these. They are case sensitive, and you're trying to make it easier. So that's another reason why I like Bitly, is it does allow you to customize it. So you can just say, you know, Bitly, you know, Kimbley or what have you. That way it's, but of course there's a limited number of those out there. You only use Bitly Kimbley one time. All right, I'm not going to have time to really go over this, but I will tell you, here's another cool thing you can do with branch logic. By the way, I've got a bunch of other stuff here from other people, like import range if you want to get really geeky, and VLOOKUP and stuff with Google Forms, you can watch that. But you can also use branch logic to build a choose your own adventure story. And I've got a link to one right here. It's a real simple one. So in the section headers or whatever, or the page breaks, you can put in text of your story, and then you give readers a choice. Do they open the door and go through, or do they keep the door closed? And if they open the door, you send them to a page with that next scene there, and go back and forth. So do they go in the dark or get a flashlight? You know, you click continue, you can go back and forth. So creating a choose your own adventure story. So if you want to see how it was built, I've got the editing view of the form open here, that if you want to take a look and see that. So here's the go to page based on answer, and then you see here's you click on that and you can choose what page it goes to. I hope that was the correct one. But you can see that. And then I've also got examples from Kate Petty. She's, in fact, she and I are co-presenting an all-day Google workshop for educators at CapCUE. She's got some examples from her students that created these, and it's really cool. See, that was a good web design. It goes to a new tab. So a bunch of choose your own adventure stories from her students that you can go through, and some of them are really well written. So it's a cool thing you can do. Any other questions? Google Formish. No, that was fast and furious. Normally I do this in hands-on sessions and it takes about 6 hours. So you got 6 hours worth of work in about 1 hour. So just keep in mind that all the resources for that are right there on teachinteractive.org. And you just hover over Google Apps and click on Google Forms. There's a bunch of other stuff there, so feel free to jump on it. My contact information is there. So my email address is, I'm on Twitter at Will Kimbley. So thanks for coming, guys.